Aloha, and we have returned back to my blog, and it has essentially been quite a long while since I have essentially released any content, and I believe it's the last time I even released some content was, I believe it was last year. So reason for that was I have been quite occupied by studies, so that has been taking quite most of my time, so I haven't been able to give out any update whatsoever. But anyways, so in this one we're going to be working with Python. So we're going to be doing a bit of some hands-on with Python. So what we do know about Python is that it is a scripting language, so we do not have to compile Python. So the way in which Python actually works is that you're going to write your code. Oops, you are going to write your code like so, and your code will be run by an interpreter, and then your machine is essentially going to be able to understand the code that you have written. So we're going to be going through a bit of a beginner hands-on with this. So first things first, we are going to need an IDE for this. So two cases, you can either work online or offline with this. So if you are perhaps, let's say you want to work offline, meaning you want to practice your Python without any need for internet access, you are going to require to install Python and the Guinea IDE on your computer. So right now I am running Zorin OS, which is basically a Linux distribution that is built to look close to Mac rather. So I'm using this. So what you are going to first need, you're going to need Python. So you're gonna run over to python.org. So when you get over to python.org, you're going to go over to downloads. Okay. Now, depending on whichever operating system or distribution that you are using, you are going to choose the one that works for you in this case. So, in my case, I'm using Linux. So, because I am using Linux, if I actually hover over this, we do not see any Linux here. That's because with Linux, you're gonna have to install using the apt package manager. But for instance, for those who are using Windows, you're gonna go over to Windows and install you're gonna go over there and download the installer. So of course we're going to need the most recent version just so we can keep up to date. So remember to make sure that you choose the one that fits your device bit architecture. So if you're using a 64-bit, you'll do like so, and a 32-bit like so. So most modern computers, they use 64-bit. So now the case is, what if I'm using Linux? Whether you are using Ubuntu or you are using Fedora or Debian. So for those who are using Debian or Ubuntu, you can use the apt, and then those who are using say Fedora, you can use Flatpak or any of those other object package managers rather. So you're gonna just launch up your terminal, and remember to install these things you need root privileges. So this is my terminal. So to do this, you're going to run sudo apt install python 3. So we need the third version of Python, not the Python 2, because there are quite a couple of differences between Python 2 and Python 3. So we are going to use Python 3. So then you're going to hit enter, and then it should be able to run the installation for you. And then once you have done that, you are going to need Guinea as well. So for those who are using Ubuntu, you're just going to use sudo apt install Genie. Okay, and this will run the installation for Genie for you. And then those who are using Windows, you are going to just go to your Google and just search for Genie, and then you're gonna go for the download there. Okay, then this will take you to a page like this. Okay, so what we are going to be looking for are the releases. Okay, so in the releases, you're going to go for your Windows 64-bit. Okay, like so. So you're just gonna click there and it will download. Now I'm sure you can see that 32-bit is no longer supported for um, recent versions of Genie rather. Okay, so to look at this, Genie looks like this. So remember, of course, after downloading those files, you actually have to run them and install them. So Genie looks like this. This is going to be our environment where we are going to build our scripts and so on. So we have access to the terminal like so. So we've got our terminal that we can use, okay, and then here we can run our files. So remember that if you are going to be writing Python scripts, you have to first pick the language first. So you're going to go over to documents and then set file type, scripting languages, and then Python source file, and then this will allow us to be able to run those Python codes that we need. And then for those who have uninterrupted internet access like myself, you are going to use GitHub. So you're going to go over to github.com. Then of course you know the drill, guys. You have to sign up, you have to create an account, log in, and all that. So suppose you've gone through your entire sign up process, and just for those who may go through a bit of some confusion, if you go over to GitHub and you are not signed in, you will see essentially a home page like this one. So you'll just go over to sign up. That's if you do not have an account. If you do have an account, you'll just go over to sign in there, and then once you do, you're gonna see a page like this. So what it is asking or prompting me for right now is my email address. So I'll go over and enter my email address there, and then it will ask for a password and so on, and you know the drill. You receive a confirmation link which you have to click, and and then essentially after doing all that, you then have to log in. And then when you've logged in, you'll be led over to your dashboard, which looks something like this. Now of course with you it could be empty. You could have basically nothing here. Now reason because mine has a lot of repositories here, because I've been working on a number of projects previously. So once we've done this, we are now then going to create a new repository. So you're going to go over and click new repository. And remember, this whole steps for using GitHub is for those that do not have those that prefer to rather code their stuff on the cloud and do not want to install Python or Genie. Okay, so once you've done this, then you're gonna give your repository a name. So we can call this Python tutorial, for instance, and you can give this a description. It's quite optional. And then we're gonna go over and click add a readme file, and then we're gonna create a repository. Okay, then this will create a repository. As you can see, my repository is now empty, and essentially a repository is just like some folder where all your scripts are and all that. Okay, and then we're gonna go over to code, and then you're gonna essentially, when you click on code, it will actually lead you to local. Just make sure that you are on code spaces, and then you'll click on create code space on main. Okay, and then this will create a code space environment. What this essentially is that it will give you a dedicated computer in the cloud, and what that dedicated computer will do is it will give you access to a terminal, a development environment, access control, and all those kinds essentially. So this is what we're going to be using most of the time. Now of course there will be some cases I can go over to Genie and address those that are using Genie in an instance. So so first things first, we're gonna first learn how to print out certain things on the screen. Okay, so normally with a terminal, if I use something like echo hello world, I'm able to print out text on my screen. Okay, so in my Python script, I should be able to do that. So in order to do that, we use what we call the print statement. So in my code spaces, I'm just gonna say code, and then I'm gonna give this file a name. So I'm just gonna call this hello.py. So that's basically the name of my script. So this is the script that I've got. Okay, so before I do all this, you're going to see a pop-up that says recommended extension Microsoft for Python. So you're going to go ahead and install it. And essentially what this is going to do is it'll give us all the Python debugging tools and all that we need for us to continue writing successful code and so on and so forth. So that is going to install. Okay, and then of course for those who have gone through the whole process of installing Python and the Genie and the wada yada yada, you don't have to do this. Okay, so now that it is installed, I'm just gonna cancel off that tab. So now that we're here, so for us to be able to print out statements on the screen, we use the print function. So print, and you need those parentheses and quotations. So quote unquote, it's for us to actually print out exactly what we give it in those quotes. So in this case, I want to print out hello world. Okay, so this just means that I've got the word, the string of text hello world, and I'm going to pass it on to the print function. And essentially what that should do is it should print out the word, the text hello world. So if I click on the play symbol there, essentially what that should do is it should start running my code. Okay, so it will take a bit, and then you can see now that we have the output hello world, like so. Okay, so let me do this. So as you can see, there is the hello world.py, like so. So now we're now able to print stuff. Okay, and remember, we can make modifications. It does not have to be hello world all the time. Hello cybernesh. I can even put exclamation points and so on and so forth. Okay, and essentially even if I run this again, it should no longer say hello world but rather hello cybernesh, like so. Okay, so pretty easy in my case. Okay, and then the next thing we need to really understand is the whole idea of variables. So variables are basically words that we can store anything. Could be a number, could be a sentence, whatsoever. Okay, so before we actually understand this, we need to understand what we know as data types. Data types, basically, it's types of information. Information can be entirely regarded, or rather represented in the form of numbers, integers, decimals, which are known as floats. It can also be represented in the form of could be strings, which in this case these are strings. Basically, it's just a sequence of characters entirely. Okay, basically just keep that in mind. So what we're going to do now is, instead of me just saying hello world, I want us to just rather say hello Nash, for instance. So I can create a variable called name, where I want to store the name of the person I want to greet. Okay, so essentially now I have to figure out what data type I need to store inside this variable. So Nash is a string. It's a sequence of characters. Okay, it's a sequence of characters. So because it is a string, a sequence of characters, I'm going to use quotations. Okay, just so that it is in that form. Okay, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to pass on Nash. Okay, so then wherever I write the word name in my code, Python will then remember that, look, name is Nash, basically. Okay, so instead of me then saying cybernash, I can perform what is known as concatenation. And concatenation is just combining things together. Okay, so in order for me to concatenate, I can use the plus symbol. Okay, so I can say plus name. So what it will do is it will concatenate, or rather combine, the word hello and name, where name is actually Nash. Okay, so essentially if I run this, I am going to get hello Nash, like that. So note, we use the plus to concatenate. Now there are certain cases where we can also use a comma to concatenate. That is the beautiful thing about the print. So I can use the comma to just concatenate hello and name, and essentially if I run this as well, I'll still get the same output. Okay, let me just clear that off. So for those who are doing this in Genie, okay, remember you've done this, you've created your file type, and you've selected Python file. Okay, and let's say you were working on the first statement that we did, so which was the print statement. So you went there and you said print hello excuse me, hello world. So you went ahead and said hello world, and you have to use Control S to save your file, and then you can pick the location that you want to save it, and of course pick the file name that you want. So in your case this would be hello.py. Okay, and then you will then save this, and then if you want to run this, okay, you will then essentially use the run key there. So you just click on run there, like so. Okay, now of course with me it is not running. That's because I do not have Python, but I rather use Python 2. So if this is your case, you're actually using Python 3, not Python 2, you would just then go to settings, and then just configure, or rather um, just change the preferences that are there for the run thing. So what we'll do is we'll then go to I think it is not quite sure um, general. Okay, that's not the case. Okay, no, that's not the one. Set build commands, yes, that's the one. So here we're not using Python that, we're actually using Python 3. So would replace Python with then Python 3, and then would hit OK. Okay, and then if we run this, it should then run our output. So you can either click there, or you could use F5, the key F5 on your keyboard, and it will run the code for you. And that is for those who are using Genie. So now we're just going to continue using GitHub code spaces. Okay, so now that we have understood that, let's actually do some math with this whole thing. So let's start off with simple addition. Okay, so let's suppose I create the variable a and I store a number 12. Note that I did not put quotes around it. This is because it is an integer, not a string. It is not a sequence of characters. It is not a word. It is just an integer. So I do not put quotations around that. And then I can create the variable b, and then maybe put the number 15 in it. Okay, and then let's suppose I want to add these two numbers and print out the answer. Two things I can do. I can create a new variable and then put in an a plus b in it. Okay, basically I'm just going to add a plus b and store the answer inside C. And then what I can do later on is then print the value C. Basically, this is one way of doing it, and I should get the answer 27 if my math is right. Yes, I should get 27 back. That's one way of doing it. Another way I can do that is by avoiding the C and actually doing everything explicitly, putting in the a plus b inside the print. Okay, and then while doing this, I'll still get the 27 ultimately. Okay, and same thing would happen if I was doing subtraction, like so. If I was doing subtraction, I would come out in a -3, because truly speaking 12 minus 15 is -3. Same thing would happen if I was multiplying, okay, like that. Okay, I would get 180, and if I was dividing, I would use that, and it should perform the division and return a float, not an integer, a float. Remember, a float is a decimal. There you go, we get a 0.8 back. Okay, that is the idea. So then you're like, well, Nash, I mean, why do we have to care about the data types? Why am I not quoting it? Well, imagine if B was a word like John, okay? And then imagine I came here and I did an A multiplied by B, like so. So what I'm really doing now is multiplying an integer with a string, and what we're going to get is a string in return. So what are we actually going to be doing here? In fact, this would give me an error if my analysis is actually right. This would give me an error. Oh no, it's actually right. We get John printed 12 times. Okay, that's basically the idea, because I'm printing John multiplied by 12, meaning just print John 12 times. That is the idea. U times 2 is UU, basically. Okay, so that's why we need to really understand the whole idea behind data types, because of this whole mathematics thing that we're doing. And another thing to also note is that plus symbol. Remember the plus, we just used it now to perform addition. Now the plus, if you actually remember quite a few minutes back, we use the plus symbol to concatenate. And really, Python is polymorphic, meaning it figures things out on its own. So if it sees that you have strings somewhere in there it will perform a concatenation. But if it sees that you just have floats or integers on their own, it will then just perform addition like so. Okay, so now that we've got the whole mathematics and variable thing under the hood, then let's understand the concept of if statements. Okay, but before doing that if statements, let's understand how to get user input. Okay, so now we're going to get the whole idea of getting user input. Okay, so what we mean by getting user input is being able to ask questions to the user. Okay, let's create a program that greets you using your own name. For example, it will ask what is your name, and then you will type in your name and hit enter, and then it should say hello so and so, depending on what your name was. So we're just going to create the variable name. Okay, and then for us to get user input, we use the input function. Okay, we're going to use the input function, and then we're going to say what is your name, and then hit a question mark and put some space there for them to write their answer. Okay, so if I run this, all I'm going to get is a program that's asking for a name. So it's saying what is your name, and then I'm just going to write James, for instance. Now of course that's not my name, but that's essentially what it will do. So basically it's going to ask for your name, and after entering your name it will save it inside the variable name. Okay, and then once we've gotten this idea, let's see if we can greet back now. So what we wanted to say is hello, and then comma. Remember, we can use the comma for concatenation, so we're going to use comma and then name. So it should be able to greet you back with your name. So if I run this, it will prompt me for my name, and then I'll just write Tinashe, which is, well, that's my name. And then if I hit enter, I should say hello Tinashe, essentially. So works pretty well, pretty good. So now I've gotten the idea of this. So now let's create a program. What we want this program to do now is we want our program to prompt us for a number. Then if the number that we enter is greater than 50, we want it to say greater than 50. If it's less than 50, we want it to say less than 50. Okay, this is where we're now going to incorporate the whole idea of if statements. Okay, if statements, or also known as conditionals. Okay, where we're going to use the if keyword. So first things first, we're going to create a variable called number, and we're going to ask them for a number. Okay, now this number, I want them to only enter integers. Okay, I don't want them to end up entering words and all that, because remember, we have stubborn people that can use this code. Okay, so I'm just going to say give me a number. Okay, we're going to prompt them to give us a number. Okay, give him some space to enter something. Okay, then they're going to enter the number. Then if the number is less than 50, we want the program to say number is less than 50. Okay, and then if the number is greater than 50, I want the program to, rather than say number is greater than 50. Okay, so if I run this, I've got two if clauses there, so it will check both conditions. Okay, so give me a number. Well, let's suppose I give it 1. So because I give it 1, it is less than 50. It should say number is less than 50. Beautiful. Then suppose now I give it maybe 70. It should give me number is greater than 70. Now question is, what if I give it 50? It does nothing, because 50 is not greater than 50, and 50 is not less than 50. So as much as I'm able to give this thing an if, I should be able to give it an else. So I can replace this whole thing into one thing. So it can become, I can say if number is less than 50. Okay, I don't know why he raised the whole thing, because I'm essentially typing the whole thing again. So if number is less than 50, I want it to say number is less than 50. Then what I can do is I can give it a second condition, okay, where I can use what is known as an elif block. So elif number is greater than 50, then I wanted to say to print out number is greater than 50. Okay, and then if both of these conditions are not met, I can throw in an else to catch everything else that is not met. So I can then say print the number is 50. Now of course, if the number is not greater than 50 or less than 50, then it's possible that the number is 50. Now I have a typo there. Yes, the number is 50. So if I go in here, I can just clear that out, and then if I run this, it should still prompt me, of course. So I can give it a 1, and it still says number is less than 50. Okay, and 60 is greater than 50. Now if I give it a 50, it should be like, oh, the number is 50. Okay, now I could have made this thing to also just check if the number is 50. Okay, so if number is equal to 50, okay, remember we use two equals to check if two things are the same. Okay, we use one equals to assign a variable. Note that. Okay, like so. Then if number is 50, then I can make it just print that the number is 50. Now of course, if I run this, it should still prompt me for a number, and if I give it the number 50, it should say number is 50, because truly the number is really 50. Okay, then with this in mind, we can then perform loops. Okay, loops allow us to repeat a chunk of code a certain number of times. So in Python there are two types of loops. There are for loops and while loops. Okay, so for loops allow us to iterate through something. Let's say for example I have the word John. When I'm iterating through this, I'm basically performing some action over each and every character that is in there. Okay, and then while loops allow us to repeat a chunk of code as long as a certain condition is true. Okay, let's start off with for loops. Let's suppose I've got the variable name and I have the word John inside of it. Okay, then I want to print out each and every letter in the word John, or rather in name. So I'm going to say for every character in name, okay, for every character in name, print the character. That is the idea. If you've done Scratch, this should actually be quite easy to interpret. So if I run this, I'm going to get John like that, each and every letter on its own, printed on it, all on its own. Okay, now we can tweak this, of course. 1 2 3 4 5 6 5 6 7 8 9. Let's suppose I want to take each and every number in this. Okay, if I'm going to take each and every number in that, I want to add 1 to it. So we can say for every num in name, I don't know why I call this name. I should make this better. Number. So if that's number, then I should make this number as well. So for every number in number, then I want to print out the very same number plus equal to 1. Okay, so meaning I'm just going to add 1 to each and everything. Okay, so let me just clear that out, and if I run this, it should work, I hope. If the maths works quite well. Okay, no, not quite. That did not work. Reason for this is actually no, reason is because you cannot, this is actually seen as a complete number on its own, so that does not work. Okay, let's just work with strings. Let's just work with the very same John that I had. Okay, let's do this, and let's say for every character in I'm still calling this number, let me just go back and call it name. Okay, so for every character in name, let's suppose I'm just gonna say print this is, or the, let me just say the character is. Okay, so I wanted to say the character is and concatenate it with the letter that it's on. So ultimately if I run this, it should say the character is J, the character is O, the character is H, and like that. See, I'm using that to iterate through each and every index entirely in there. Okay, and then now it's the context of while loops. Remember, while loops will work as long as a certain condition is true. So the formatting would be, you would say while, and then inside these brackets you'd put in the condition that you want. So we're going to type in our condition that we want, and then we'll use a colon, and then we'll indent and write in what we want. Okay, so let's suppose we're going to make a rocket launcher. So we're going to give it a starting number. So we want this thing to count from 10 all the way up until 0. Okay, so um so we're going to say okay, yes, we're going to count from 10 up to 0. So while the start, okay, while the start is not equal to 0, as long as the variable start is not equal to 0, he should do this. So number one, he should print that number. Okay, so you should print that number ultimately. So pretty simple. So if I run this, okay, it keeps printing, and it's still printing 10. Why is it not going to 9? Well, that's because I have not implemented any changes to happen to start. So after it prints start, what I essentially wanted to do is subtract 1 from start. So I'm going to then say start minus equal to 1. Okay, so if I run this, it should give me 10 all the way up to 0. And then what I wanted to do after this, of course, is to print lift off. So I'll get out of the while loop and then print a cool lift off. Okay, pretty cool, pretty cool. So if I run this, it will print 10 all the way up to that and print lift off. Now let's make this a little interesting. I'm gonna use a module called time, and I'll make this wait like 1 second. So time dot wait, I'll make it wait like, I don't know, 2 seconds in between. Yeah, I'll make it wait like 2 seconds in between, just to add like some cool effect. So oh no, not time dot wait, it's actually time dot sleep. So I'm going to use the sleep function. I wonder if I got this correct. So yes, there we've got a 10, 9, 8, and 7. And what it's essentially doing is after printing each number, during each cycle it does through the while loop, it will just wait 2 seconds. That's essentially what it's doing. That actually has a bomb effect than a rocket effect actually, but nonetheless, that is the whole idea. Okay. So not to bombard you with too many stuff, we're just gonna end it off right there. So for those that are interested in taking the full course, you are going to find a link in the description that will take you to the full course, and of course you will be offered a certificate, of course, if you make it throughout the course. So good luck guys, and I will see those of you who are going to take the course in class, I guess. See you guys in class.